My brother, my brother, my brother. What's going on?
How
We
goes it?
are here. Another episode of the Sanctuary Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. We got a great episode on today. We have never really covered this conversation, and I'm definitely looking forward to jumping in this conversation with my boy, JB, who was on with me again. JB, what's happening, brother?
Everything is everything. I'm so glad, man, to get a chance to chop it up with you one more time, man. Sometimes we got to have these conversations from time to time, man, and make sure we on the right track, man. I really do appreciate you for having me on one more time.
Absolutely, man. I could not have this conversation without the one and only JB, because got the smooth voice and the smooth perspective. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about, is your attraction your distraction? Is your attraction your distraction? And I know that somebody's scratching their head already, but listen to me. A lot of times, what we are attracted to can sometimes be the worst thing for us. Sometimes my attraction has to be examined, because we have to ask ourselves, are the things that draw me in beneficial to me? When we look back over our life and see some of our relational choices, some of our relationships, some of our dating experiences, we have to always be self aware enough to realize what helped me versus what hindered me. Because we cannot continue to move forward in life and never check where we've been. Because if we don't understand where we've been, those experiences will always repeat themselves. And if you have unfavorable chances always repeating themselves, you got to ask yourself, is my attraction my distraction? So, JB, tell me this, man. When you first hear the term, is my attraction my distraction, what do you think of?
Bad decisions based upon ego. Is the thing, man. I always had this saying, man, that says that people fall in love with themselves through you. You just so happens to be the recipient, you know what I mean, of the
Mm-hmm.
behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
normally what happens is that it takes a while for somebody to really, really get to know you and love you. I tell anybody it takes about 10,000 hours for you to be proficient at anything and be good at anything.
You're
And
right.
nowadays we don't really have that much time to put into relationships anymore.
Yeah.
So what we do is we overvalue the way people look sometimes, and we give it more weight than it really should.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, man. When we're coming up, man, our grandmothers used to have this thing they do. You come over there and ask you, hey, have you eaten yet? Man, let me tell you something. To me, that felt like home. You see what I'm saying? That
Yes,
felt
sir.
like home because that was concern. So
Yeah.
when you're raised on someone who's been concerned for you, then you automatically assume that other people will do the same. But sometimes people don't always do you that way,
Sir.
and sometimes we'll overvalue the way someone looks for our own selfish ego reasons. We'll say, hey, look, that's my girl. You know what I'm saying? Or the ladies say, oh, that's my man. See, the onus is still the possession of for yourself. And it
Mm-hmm.
isn't until we get to the point where we're not as selfish and we actually love the person that we're with, that is when we really get to know that person and overlook or overcome our crutch in using an attraction as a compass for who we really should be with.
Sir, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think that naturally, as you were saying, when we hear the word attraction, our mind automatically goes to physical attraction. That's oftentimes all we are concerned about, is how fine she is, or how fine he is if you are a woman. That becomes the end all be all for us. And we sometimes don't realize that, as a result of us not understanding how to manage attraction, we end up putting ourselves in a lot of compromising positions. And man, I find that as a result, we sometimes don't give ourselves the natural ability sometimes to decipher what is good for us, what is not. We don't give a chance to actually be happy, right, with this person. Because if I'm only relying on the fact that she looks like this? Have I ever gone past wrapping paper? What's the gift inside? Right? Before we
Right.
continue, ladies and gentlemen, we got the one and only AB Bracewell has graced us here in the sanctuary. Brother, what's going on, man?
Good, man. Cut it out. One and only. I'm good. Though. How your brothers doing?
We good, man. We just chopping it up, bro. Like right now, we just are touching on physical attraction right now and how sometimes that can be a hindrance if we're only relying on that as a springboard for a relationship. So I'm gonna come right to you, man, and I'm gonna ask you when you hear the phrase "Is my attraction my distraction?" What comes to your brain?
Immaturity.
Mm,
Definitely made me think about my years when I was a lot younger. When before I came to the realization that you need more than physical attraction, because like I heard you saying, that's definitely um where a lot of my hours, or I should say my mind used to go to when you had attraction. It's strictly physical. I had no concern about the mental or the spiritual or the psychological
mhm,
part. I was totally focused on, was she physically attractive? Did she have the body type that I like? Did she have the face that I like? The eyes, the lips, the hips, all of those things. So and I would say it definitely was a distraction. It was a distraction because I end up getting into a lot of relationships or a lot of
mhm,
situationships that I probably shouldn't have, and I stayed too long when I should have left, based on just a physical attraction. No matter how toxic or unhealthy the situation might be, that physical attraction kept me there or made me even approach. Like I could see that, oh yeah, this person right here might have some issues or might cause some drama, but because she looked the way I looked, I was distracted by that, and I did
mhm.
try to overlook all of the other red flags that I should have took heed to. So yeah, so that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that title, my immature years, my more immature years, and how it, definitely was a distraction.
I feel you. And you know what? It takes a man to use the word immature towards himself. And I realize you're talking in retrospect, but it takes a lot for us as men to acknowledge the fact that at one point in time, our decisions were immature. Like I think all of us can relate to that. That there were times in our life where you could not even realize that you're being immature in that moment because I mean, say you're 25, 30 years old, right? Sometimes you don't even realize that you need more than physical attraction because as men is taught to us that sex is innate in us. So naturally, sexual attraction is what we glean for until we reach a point of realizing, you know what, I, I need I need intimacy. And sometimes those I have an attraction for physically can't give that to me. I'm gonna let you know what? Let's not go there yet. Let me say this. When we think about attraction, you got physical attraction, you got emotional attraction, you got intellectual attraction, you've got psychological attraction, you've got social attraction, cultural attraction, spiritual attraction. And sometimes because we do not have a working knowledge of what the other attractions are, it's impossible for me to engage those things not knowing, what they are, right? I mean, they're even, biological and chemical attractions. They got these popular colognes now dealing with pheromones. But when we think about, let's just say, intellectual attraction, coming to you, JB, how important to you is it to have an intellectual attraction for your lady?
It is very important. And I'll explain to you why. I fancy myself a little bit of an intellectual myself. And to be able to have conversations like no other is very important,
Mm-hmm.
because it may be days I might decide I want to talk about something that most people don't talk about. And the person that's closest to me should be the one who should be able to handle the conversations that we have. Not to get too deep into the different types, but she has to be available for me to be able to handle those conversations.
Yes,
And
sir.
intellectually, that's where people meet in agreement sometimes. If you can actually see where I'm coming from, or you can see where I'm trying to explain, or I can see where you're coming from, I can see what you're trying to explain, then it actually helps the relationship a little bit better. It helps you bond a little closer when you have something that you in common that you can talk about. Now, of course, there will be things where you have your own interests and things that she may have her own interests. But for the main part, the main core is that you should be able to talk to your mate about anything, and they should be comfortable with talking to you about anything. But intellectually, you want to deal with somebody who's mature, as AB would say, who can handle their own emotions, just like I
Mhm.
would be able to handle my own emotions. And sometimes we may get off track. I want to be able to know that she can handle getting me back on track just the same way I'll be able to know how to get her back on track, so we can actually have discussions, or we don't have too many fallouts or disagreements. So being able to be skillful in how we handle each other is very important in a relationship, especially to me, because I always tell people either she's going to be extremely naive when she deal with me, or she's going to have to be highly intelligent. And either way it go, I need an honest effort. So that's how
I
I
like
look
that.
at it. I need an honest effort.
Right. You know, to your point, I always say that even if we do not think alike, can we think together? And we forget the importance of us thinking together. Like, should we be in a long term relationship or a marriage? Can we make decisions together? Can you support my decisions when you disagree with me? Right? Can I support you in your endeavors without being intimidated that you're going to excel further than I am? Right? Do we have a mutual respect for where you are in life, where I am in life? I think all of that really impacts intellectually our attraction, right? We don't have to be necessarily just alike, but can I respect your difference and vice versa? And can where we're different be an asset to one another, right? Because I found that there are lots of people who are long-term marriage, 30, 40, 50 years. And you see them and you wonder, like, wow, they are completely different, right? And you wonder what keeps them together. And you might even think that he would not find her attractive physically, or that she might not find him attractive physically. But they have found a way to make this thing really work, right? Because they have moved past, I believe, simple attraction, and even moved compatibility, right? And they have realized how suitable they are one to another. I'm coming to you, AB. When it concerns compatibility and suitability, what place do you think that attraction of any kind plays in that?
Man, it plays a major part. Um, just to speak on like that uh, intellectual catabi- cat- catability or attraction is major because for me, I have to be able to understand how you process stuff.
Hmm.
I have to be understand how you function cognitively. So and that ties into the communication and our conversation. If intellectually attractive woman almost demands more respect from me. Like yeah,
Mm.
I automatically raise my respect for her because I like the way she thinks. She challenges my thinking. So in turn, helps me become a better man. Um, and with the compatibility piece that you asked, that's Ask that question one more time as I process my thoughts. Because
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm saying when it concerns compatibility and suitability,
Mhm.
what place do you think attraction of any kind plays in that?
Oh, I think it's major. It's major. Attraction of any kind. We have. I once heard somebody say, and I feel like I'm jumping around. Like you can't just respect what I believe, but you have to believe what I believe in order for us to make it. And and when I say believe what I believe, I mean like the core value type things. You don't not
Mhm.
necessarily you have to have the same opinions of me as me, or agree with everything, but the core things that I base my life on, it
Right.
needs to be compatible with you. We need to match in those areas. The physical, yeah, definitely. I will never play down the physical like it's not important. It's important, but I've learned that that shouldn't always be the most important. I need that the intellectual and that
Mhm.
spiritual compatibility, that mental compatibility, all those other pieces when it comes to compatibility. And I always look at compatibility. Well, I can't say that word tonight. As this, like two pieces that fit together.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily the same piece. We don't have to match. We don't even have the same function. You come with your skills. I come with my skills. You come with your ability and your
Right.
capabilities, and I come with mine. But we fit together. So
Right.
we like a puzzle. So when you look at a puzzle piece, they're actually opposite pieces of the, but they fit together. So when I think of compatibility, think of a woman. I think that's so important. I don't need her to be like me. I need her to be the opposite of me, so we can come together and fit together as one.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. What about you, JB?
Yeah, if we're both the same, one of us is not needed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I need something, somebody to fill in the blanks, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's my thing: I don't mind her thinking differently as long as we can think together. It's like you said earlier. And an extremely intelligent woman is very attractive,
Hmm.
and people don't understand that because an extremely intelligent woman knows how to handle herself.
Yes.
She handles herself with grace. The other day, I was watching
We don't
something
have
on
to match.
YouTube
We don't.
where this woman was actually wearing a 1950s dress all the way down to the ground, and you can actually see how graceful she was moving, and she was turning heads left and right because she stuck out because she was extra classy.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I akin that to a very extremely intelligent woman, somebody who knows how to talk to people,
Yes, sir.
someone who knows how to treat people. Because what you don't realize is that when you get a wife who moves like that,
Yes.
that's where your favor comes from.
Say
You
that.
know, ain't that what the Bible say? A man who finds a wife finds a good thing and find favor with the Lord.
Talk,
That's where
sir.
that favor comes from when you operate in integrity. When you operate in grace, when you operate in faith, that's where favor comes from. And a woman who has a fear for the Lord is worthy to be praised.
Hey, you preaching, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
you preaching. Let me say this, since we are going there. So I was thinking, right, when it concerns us as men selecting a wife, I said to myself, I don't believe that God really wanted us to even use our eyes in that decision. And that there are a lot of people who will disagree with this. But hear me out. The Bible says that a man's eyes are never satisfied. Now I think about in the beginning, God did not put Adam in a position to choose Eve based upon what he saw. Literally put Adam in an state. He was asleep. I think Adam had to be asleep because the heart of real true attraction and suitability has nothing to do with how somebody looks to me with my eyes. I can't even really use my five senses to determine that. If you think about it, my five senses are not really of use to me to figure out who is really suitable for me and my purpose in life. And I think that's the reason that God put Adam asleep. That when he woke up, he had given Adam all that he needed in Eve, right? She was a part of him. So Adam had to recognize himself in her. That's not about him saying she's 36, 24, 36. That's not about him saying how fine she is, right? It's about him understanding the fact, you know what? I realize that there's something in her. I've had an awakening, literally, where I realize there's something in this woman that I have to have. And there's something in me I've got to give her, right? It has to be, in my perspective, a divine connection that you have that you really cannot create yourself, right? I, we can somewhat create intellectual attraction by dealing with somebody that's intellectual, right?
Right.
I can have a physical attraction by being around those I find attractive, right? I can even have cultural attraction dealing with those who we share some cultural similarities. But when it really concerns compatibility and that suitability piece and figuring out who is suitable for this journey of life, I cannot create that. God literally has to help me discern that and decipher that. And it takes God to reveal that to us as men. Because again, it goes beyond what we see. Now, should she be attractive? Wonderful. But I bet all of us have stories that we could talk about where we've dealt with, she's fine, beautiful, she's a 10. Things did not work, right? She was poison. Big button, a smile. That's it. As men, I think we have to grow as men into a place to be able to see a woman beyond her wrapping paper and see that gift inside. God has to literally, I believe, put us in a position to where we are somewhat unconscious to how she looks, right? Unconscious, even somewhat to many things about her that we formerly would notice first, but we realize in the past that was no benefit to me. And you have to grow to a place in God where you know what I've had an awakening because she's entered my life, and I've awakened and I see her like I have never seen any other woman, and that becomes the thing that makes you want to marry her. What you guys think? Anybody?
You know what? Go ahead, AB. Go ahead.
No, I would just say I agree, and I think we really have to get to a point, kind of like you said. You said physical attraction is good. It's not a bad thing, but I think as men, we definitely have to get to a point where we don't get stuck at the physical attraction. We can acknowledge and recognize that a woman is physically attractive, but then we have to start asking the question, and what else?
Right,
What else is there?
right,
We can't just dwell on the fact that you're beautiful, that you have a nice body, because that's where we get distracted and get caught up in. So
right,
I can definitely acknowledge that physical attraction. No, it's your physical attraction that made me approach you in the first place. So is there, but after that, I have to start searching and exploring on what else is there. What else do you bring? What else do you possess? How do you think? What's your personality like? all those other things that really make the core of a person. Those things that really are kind of unchangeable. The physical is going to change. It's going to, it could get better, it can get worse. So I think our problem as men sometimes is that we get stuck at the physical part, and then we never really start to explore all those other aspects of a person, and if we're attracted to them on those different layers.
You know
I
what, Greg?
definitely
I
agree.
was on TikTok today. I'm glad you brought this topic up because we were in a group, and there was a gentleman who had been married for like 46 odd years to his bride, and we asked him. I said, "What made you understand that the woman that you married then is the woman who you wanted to marry?"
Mhm,
He said, "Of course, she was beautiful or whatever, but he said she was the sweetest person I had
mhm,
ever met in my life." And he said, "I knew right then and there she was going to be my wife."
mhm.
And to me, that speaks volumes, man.
Right.
Whenever we talk about relationships, I think sometimes people like to overcompensate for certain things. If you look at it, man, in the early 60s and 70s, most of the people who fell in love because they cared about each other. It wasn't
Right.
so much about the style, that type of thing, is that they really, really cared. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then after that, we reach into the 90s or whatever, people wanted to be intellectual. They wanted to go to school to be somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what happens is they use education as a band-aid, as a means to not really caring about somebody or to take care of themselves. And now we here in 2024 where everybody looks the same, but everybody's hollow on the inside, trying to feel or trying to get a spouse or a mate. And what happens is on one end of the spectrum, you have people who are hollow on the inside but look
Mhm.
beautiful, and there's nothing there. You know what I mean? It's like that
Yeah.
chocolate Easter bunny that you bite that's hollow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it
Mhm.
look like chocolate, but on the inside is air. There's nothing there. You know what I mean? And the killing part about it is our souls crave substance. You
Right.
know, our
Right.
souls crave substance. So I think we've gotten out of practice of actually learning how to physically and mentally love each other the right
Mhm,
way and to spiritually love each other. Man, think about
mhm,
it. Ask how many couples do their spouse actually pray for them, you know what I mean,
mhm.
on a regular basis. How many spouses actually hold their spouse hand and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, look, I'm going to
Yeah.
cover you today. I'm going to anoint
Yeah.
your head with oil today.
Come
I'm
on
going to
now.
pray for you today." You see what I'm saying? Those are the smaller things that I don't think we really do anymore. We don't
Mhm.
cover each other before we leave the house. We're not aware that there's a possibility that that person may not come home that day. So
Yeah.
you might want to go ahead and show them some love and tell them you love them right then and there, because tomorrow is not promised, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, man, we forget that and we
Yeah.
get out of practice. So that's the reason why I say we have to get back to learning how to do the things that actually count, which is actually care about each other.
Listen, sir. I love it. Let me say this. We talk a lot in society about how people have an addiction to alcohol and to uh, illegal drugs, right? But I don't think that we realize that that same concept translates over to relationships in the sense of, there are things called, again, biological and chemical attraction, right? And I think that if we were to explore things like serotonin and dopamine, oxytocin, and but not just what they are, but when those levels increase in a person, right? We would realize how people have a deep, a deep attraction and almost a pull to toxic individuals. Like, let's say you have somebody in a relationship, right? And we all can see this person is not good for them. And they've been a year with this person. And we cannot figure out what is it. They don't treat you well. They don't take you anywhere. Will we never consider this? Does this person have a chemical dependency on this person? Like having an orgasm increases things like serotonin, dopamine. Well, if this person happens to be the only individual, because you're with them, that you're being sexually intimate with, you could have a sexual dependency upon this person because they're the only person in your life that makes you feel like that. They may have isolated you away from your family, your friends, your loved ones. So you only have a chance to have those levels increased around them, right? They're the only one that hugs you occasionally. They're the only one that gives you affection occasionally. Well, now they're the only thing in your life that makes you feel like this, right? So now you have an addiction to that person because why? They're the only person and the only thing in your life that makes those levels increase. Truth of the matter is, we need those levels increased by many things in life that are healthy for us. But the same way it can be healthy, it can be toxic if you attach that to the wrong individual. And I believe a lot of people are in bad relationships because they have a chemical dependency on this person to feel a certain way. And oftentimes we never examine that because we see the obvious bad, right? But we do not see the hidden truth as to what this person does for this person. It's a woman with a toxic man, right? Sexual intimacy is a different experience for a man than a woman. Women oftentimes equate sex with love. Men don't always do that. If this man happens to be the one that she's being intimate with sexually, well, then he becomes the thing that she attaches certain feelings to, right? Because again, we're talking about chemical attraction. Well, again, when those hormones go up, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and they are the reason, then they become your fix. And oftentimes you will tolerate bad behavior just to get back to your fix because you know eventually you're going to get high on what they do to you. And especially if what they do to you in the bedroom happens to be satisfying. Talk to me, AB.
Yeah, man. As you spoke, man, my mind was just going wild because I could think of so many examples and so many situations where I know people got caught up because of that sexual attraction, or what you use the clinical word sexual dependency. I'm gonna call it how we call it around the way. You was
Yes,
whipped.
sir. Come
You
on.
your nose was wide open.
Yes, sir.
But it's all the same thing. It's all, and you do grow a level of dependency on that. And I think what often happens, like when you were speaking about people that get caught up in relationships where it's obviously toxic, but they're staying in that relationship because of the sex
Mhm.
or the attraction. I speaking from not from personal experience, but from observation and people that I know close to me. I really think that so many people have this distorted view of love and intimacy and attraction that
Mhm.
unhealthy toxic behavior is also often confused as that. I
Right.
often think that I know some people that are actually attracted to toxicity.
Right.
And I can't always put my finger on what it is, but just to guess sometimes is what you grew up seeing, what you grew up receiving, what made you think that that was love, what made you think that was attraction. But when you really break it down, it's abuse. If it's toxic,
Right.
is yeah, it's unhealthy. But because that's what you know, that's what you saw, that was your experience, that's what you begin to expect. You didn't have somebody in your life teaching you what healthy love is or what healthy attraction is. No one was teaching you about respect, sacrifice, and like admiration in the relationship. All you saw was, the toxicity. So, it could becomes normalized. It becomes normalized, but especially when we hit that our adulthood. And then that's why I think a lot of people get in those type of relationships and stay in there because,
Right.
it is not out of the ordinary for them. This is
Right.
what it's supposed to be.
And another example of how, again, our attraction becomes our distraction. And I think because we don't typically have these conversations, this is a very, very unnatural conversation to think that your attraction can be a distraction. Because we're told all our life, what are you attracted to? Go after it. It's not always healthy. We're never taught to examine, but why do you have an attraction for that? Is it beneficial? Right? The Bible says everything is permissible, but not beneficial. And we don't always realize like what is truly beneficial to us as individuals. What is necessary and needed in life in a person for us to move forward successfully, right? Oftentimes we enter these seemingly good relationships because we have never seen the bad, but we don't realize outside of how this person looks, we know nothing. So we have made a commitment to the unknown because all we are relying on is what a person looks like or how I feel around this person. Like it's a common phrase, JB and AB, that people say, you know what, I got to have chemistry. We got to have chemistry. But what is that? And what are we calling chemistry? Because we could both have chemistry because I find you attractive, you find me attractive, we both feel a certain way. Those again, romantic hormones that are spiked in this moment, and we call that chemistry. But what else do we know? Do you know what the verb goes in a sentence? You know, do you know how to speak in mixed company? How do you treat those who cannot benefit you, right? How do you treat individuals who don't have the means to do anything for you, right? Those things matter in life, especially when you begin to approach 40 or over 40, right? Can you recognize the sign of a stroke? You know what I'm saying? Can you recognize the signs of high blood pressure? I'm about to pass out. Can you tell? I need you to be able to recognize certain things that, again, go beyond us having fun or feeling good. Let me shift gears for a second and go here, ladies and gentlemen. So we talked about chemical attraction. We talked about uh, physical attraction. What about this? We are all men of faith. What about spiritual attraction? Controversial question. Can a spiritual attraction be a distraction? Can a spiritual attraction be a distraction? Coming to you, JB.
You know what? I think so. And I'll go into a little detail why. Sometimes anything can be a distraction. You know what I mean? There's a time and place for everything. You know, if it's our time, it's our time. You know, if it's the Lord's time, it's the Lord's time. Just like when you go to work, it's time to go to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't go to work and use their time to pray. You know what I mean? I can't come on your job to come see my boo. You know what I mean? Everything has its own place and time.
Right.
Here's the problem I see a lot of times with people. Sometimes people can manufacture a problem or an addiction or an attraction. It's just like we talked about earlier about the chemicals, you know, that are in us. Sometimes we don't have to necessarily do anything to that person, We just have to be around them when it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The same thing that a person feels when they're on drugs or gambling or having sex triggers the exact same synapses in the brain.
That's
I'll
right.
give you an example. Say, for instance, if you go to the fair with a young lady and you guys get
Yeah.
on a roller coaster, that roller coaster is going to elevate your endorphins, or
Mhm.
those elevated endorphins, she's going to associate with you with having a good time. So every time she feels excited, she's going to think about you, whether you're there or not.
That's right.
So what happens is that is one way that could be manufactured, which technically is the way it should be. And I'll tell you why, is because when you spend enough time with somebody, you learn to love them over time. Sometimes people like to use other means to short circuit that or to cheat the system, you know? And
Mhm.
sometimes people use sex to cheat the system. It's the same way when you talk about spiritual. Sometimes people want to use God as a distraction to say, you know what, the Lord told me that you was going to be my wife one day. But did he tell her that? You see what I'm saying? Sometimes people will put paint where it ain't, you know?
Okay.
And that can be a distraction. So my whole thing is this: you want to make sure that everything goes in its proper place in its proper time, you know,
Mhm.
and to make sure that you don't try to cheat the system. Let it do what it's supposed to do. So that way you don't overlook certain red flags when it comes to attraction, when it comes to being spiritual. Because sometimes as men of faith, sometimes we'll get distracted by faith as well too, because we
Right.
place a higher value on faith, you know, instead of just saying, hey, you know, how is this really being applied in this
Right.
particular situation? We'll justify how we feel. You know
Right.
what I mean? Or she tender-eyed. You know what I'm saying? As they say in the Bible. But my whole thing is this: sometimes we have to make sure that we don't manufacture
Mhm.
a distraction from our own selves, because we project that onto somebody because that's what we want from them back. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I'll even go a step in the other direction too, JB. Like, let's take spiritual attraction. You could have a woman who finds an attraction for the man of God because of his position, and he's intelligent, and he is saying all the things that she wishes her man would say or her exes would have said.
Right.
Right? He's got sound teaching. And should he be teaching on marriage? And he knows that stuff front to back. He can explain it. And if she's in a vulnerable position because she is not healed from heartbreak, now this spiritual attraction that she has begins to be birthed out of brokenness, because what she's saying is that he healed me. And she gives man the credit for what God is doing.
Absolutely.
So now her spiritual attraction becomes toxic, because now she has made this pastor an idol, because she's saying he healed me. He set me free. He made me feel better. He spoke to my heart. No, it was God. That's the man of God. He's just a vessel, right? But if you allow insecurity to now become your way of thinking, like we talk about talking out of brokenness. We talk about in a relationships out of brokenness. But what about speaking out of insecurity? Right? If
Right.
you speak out of insecurity or a hurt, broken place, then how you speak, how you perceive, your perspective is all flawed because it comes from a flawed place, right?
Right.
Talk to me, AB.
Nah, I think we've all probably heard this saying that the church is probably the best place to find a wife. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you probably heard that before.
yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not,
Yeah.
but it's definitely not. It definitely don't apply to everybody. It doesn't definitely
That's right.
apply to everybody in the church at all. Because just because you're spiritual I learned that that doesn't mean that you're still not suffering from trauma. Just because you're spiritual doesn't mean that you still don't have some negative habits or may have some addictions. So I really believe in balance. Definitely have to be spiritually attracted to you, but all
Mhm.
those other things have to be healthy as well. They all have to be in a at a good level. You know, we can't just I can't just go into church and because I see a young lady in church, automatically think, oh, she's a church girl. She's good, and that could be a distraction. Just just the fact that she prays hard, or she goes to church every Sunday, or whatever it might be that might give the impression that she's spiritual. When you dig deep, it doesn't always mean that. And I think what's important for people is that we have to have that strong relationship with God, so we don't get distracted by the spiritual, just the spiritual. Because if because we'll be able to detect and we'll be able to identify, you know, what's if this spiritual attraction I have,
Mhm.
if it's real or if it's not, or if it's deep, if it's solid. So yeah, spiritual attraction, like it's important, but
Mhm.
for me, it's the balance. I need the balance. We need to be attracted on multi levels.
Yeah.
Not just spiritual, but like you said, the intellectual, the mental, the physical. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
You know, I am big on this, and I believe that you guys are too. I'm really big on context, right? And I believe that anything, if taken out of context, can be toxic, right? Just like we said, you can have a toxic spiritual attraction. I think that even inside of the church, sometimes we do not contextualize attraction or the different kinds of attraction to help all of us realize what this is supposed to look like, right? I always, say to any pastor, you got to really be a great orator talking about certain things from the pulpit, right? I watched, side note, I watched the DNC last night and I saw B Rock, who I feel, no matter how anybody feel about his politics, he's a great orator,
Yes, he is.
wonderful at it. And when we talk about how to illustrate and illuminate things to people, let's just say it's attraction, right? Spiritual attraction. What should that look like? For me, I go to Psalm 91, right? He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High God shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I'll say, He's my rock, refuge. In Him I'll put my trust. All right. Look, what's the context, GD? The context is number one, He that dwells. Where am I dwelling? In the secret place of who? The Most High God. Okay. Why am I abiding in the secret place of the Most High God? Because that place is the shadow of the Almighty. Why is it important to be in that place? If I am in that place, I don't have to worry about things that are not for me easily getting to me because I have intentionally put myself in a place where God can not just shield things from me, He can help me recognize also what is not for me by teaching me in this secret place what is for me. So if I'm intentionally abiding in a secret place, I have taken my attention off of a woman and I have placed my attention onto God. And I have now, in taking my attention off of a woman, I have become now more intentional about dating and who I date. Makes sense?
It does.
Now, if she does the same thing that I'm doing, right? She put herself in the secret place of who? The Most High God, right? So now she's trying to find the shadow of the Almighty too. She's in that place. Her attention is not on me or a man, it's on God. See, we think that we think that intentional dating means that, well, I know what I want and I'm going to find that and that alone. That's warm. But it's really about learning what not to pay attention to, right? I don't need to seek a woman. If I am a Christian single, my responsibility is to find the secret place of the Most High. If she does the same thing, it is now God who does the introducing. But see, we don't allow God to introduce us. Now, I'm not taking away a person's personal choice. I'm not. I'm just saying that once you're in that secret place, there should be a plethora of people there if they love God, right? So it's going to be a plethora of people there that you can now determine not just compatibility, because that's strictly about sharing core values. But if I'm in here with other individuals who already share common core beliefs, I can now be really intentional about recognizing one that is suitable for my journey in life. Because where she's going and where I'm going will be the same direction. So it no longer becomes me having to be like, I got to date her for a whole year to figure things out. No, I can now enter the relationship, and the intention is what? Marriage. That's what it really means to be intentional. But we have not, again, really put pen to paper and written that down for us to be able to see for ourselves, right? We are relying on secular books, secular programming, which does have its place. But some of those things contradict our faith. There are a lot of things in the Word of God that will help us with our attractions, but we won't allow God sometimes to lead us in areas where we feel like, I know better than God. How you feel about that, JB?
You know what? I'm so glad you said it that way. Think about it, man. What better recommendation is there when you come highly recommended by God himself? You know what I'm saying? Could you imagine? Could you imagine you're in the secret place and God says to your wife, I have someone for you. He comes highly recommended by me, hand selected just for you. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. Or vice versa. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He says, I have someone for you. You know, they come highly recommended by God himself. Could you imagine the creator of all speaking on your behalf?
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? You know what I mean? That to me, that right there speaks volumes. That speaks volumes, because they've already passed the test of being in the secret place, and to get highly recommended by the Almighty, man. Oh my goodness. It don't get no better than that.
It don't.
It don't get no better than that.
When we think about the ways in which, God introduced people within Scripture, right? It was not by happenstance. It was very intentional. Even when it concerned things like a kinsman redeemer with like Boaz and Ruth, right? It was a very, very intentional thing. And it shows how marriage is not simply for pleasure, it's for purpose. And those are the things that we do not examine prior to getting into a relationship, period. Can this person, can this man, can this woman help me in my purpose? It is wonderful to have physical attraction. It's wonderful. And I am not by any means dismissing that. But I am saying I do not believe it was ever God's intent for us to really focus on our eyes, what our eyes see. Because you need more than eye candy. You need soul food. And at the end, man, I'm like, you need some soul food, because if who you're with cannot feed your soul, cannot feed your spirit, they cannot take care of you. And you're not safe with them. You're not. If they cannot take care of your soul, at the end of the day, we ought to feel comfortable being emotionally, spiritually, and even physically at the proper time, naked in front of this person with no fear of rejection, no fear of vulnerability. Because if you are a man, you trust that this woman has enough virtue to cover your insecurity. If you are a woman, you understand that this man is emotionally intelligent enough and spiritually mature to where he hears you. He hear what you're not saying. He know how to speak to the parts of you that never had a voice. Right? He understands that your mind is a river, and he want to bathe in those waters. Because when a man really loves his woman, he really does want to hear what she has to say. He does. Because he understands that part of the reason she was given to me was to complete the mission. Not me, but complete the mission. I can't complete it without her. That's why she is to be protected. Love her like Christ loved the church. It's about recognizing the value she is to you, that you won't let anything destroy her or her place in your life, because you realize, you know what? I have now made a commitment that I'll sacrifice my will for her well-being. That is hard for a man to do. And that is why I believe that death is mentioned in relationship to a man in marriage. Because a man has to die to himself, right? I have to daily crucify parts of me to love her better, right? That alone will make her more attracted to me. Because now her attraction, like, I don't believe attraction should ever stop. Like what you find today should change 5, 10 years down the road. If I'm loving you at a point now, as we get deeper in this thing, your attraction for me should increase, because I've learned how to love you not just better, but differently throughout every season of life. Because how I love you today won't be the same 2 years from now, and it can't be. Because as you evolve, so must my love, right? Like you mentioned, I'm coming to you, AB. You mentioned, JB, a minute ago, that things can sometimes be manufactured. I definitely agree with that, because a lot of times we are relying on an attraction that we manufactured ourselves. And then we wonder why what we joined together was separated, right? Because the Bible never said what is joined together, what God joins together. And God doesn't join every relationship together. A lot of times we do that. And then we wonder why things don't work out, not realizing, did you ever get a thumbs up from God? Do you even have peace about that decision to be with that person? If you are uneasy on your wedding day, don't do it. That should be no uneasiness on that day. Now, it's one thing to be nervous, right? But you can't, but uneasy? No, sir. No, ma'am. And a lot of times I have seen I've attended weddings where I'm like, man, he is clearly uneasy. She is clearly uneasy. And if you happen to know the relationship of the people, and you know of things that you know really are not right, and you don't want to say that, right? But you know in your brain, like, I hope they make it, but I ain't sure. Talk to me, AB.
Oh man, when you mentioned Ruth and Boaz, my mind started to go on in a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I started to think of his process of engagement with Ruth.
Yes, sir.
Realized he didn't just see Ruth working in the field and just go approach her
Right.
and off of attraction, physical
Right.
attraction. Like he saw her, and I'm pretty sure he was physically attracted when he saw her, but he started to ask about her. Like who's that young lady? And he started to find out information about her, different things on different levels. He started to realize how sacrificial and compassionate she was because she came with Naomi. She left her home and came here. He started to see how hard of a worker she was.
Yeah.
Working in the field, picking up behind the others. And as I think of that and just think of my own journey, growing spiritually as a man of God, I realized that I don't even approach women like I used to.
Yeah.
Like it takes me a while to approach a woman these days, and it's not because I'm nervous, not because I'm scared, not because I don't know what to say. It's because I'm examining her. After that initial physical attraction, then I have to start to examine how you move. I have to examine how you work, how you interact with other people. Is the personality that I see, is it consistent? Or you wishy-washy. One day you're angry, next day you're happy. Your emotions up and down. It takes a while before I decide. Okay, I think things are lining up. Now let me go a little deeper and see where this attraction can lead me. But I think that's where my mind went. Like we really have to examine, have to vet. We have to do our research. I know sometimes in church, I speak to a lot of young ladies and say, "Oh, the guys don't approach you in church." Some guys are sitting back and watching you. He's sitting back and examining you before he approach. It's because when we was out in the street, yeah, he might approach you just based off of physical attraction. But once you become a man of God, you really have to look a lot deeper than that to see what's under the surface.
You sure do.
Mhm.
So for me, spiritual attraction and psychological attraction are very much related in my perspective. I say that because I always say in any arena of life that my theology has to speak to my psychology. And I have to find balance between two, right? I don't think that anybody pastor in anybody's church will have any level of success if you don't understand psychology. And because honestly, theology and psychology are so closely related in terms of the impact it has on a person and then what it impacts about the person. They both have all to do with your brain and the way in which you would think moving forward. There are a lot of things that we do not understand theologically because we have not applied psychology to it, right? We talk about things like, let this mind be in you that's also in Christ Jesus. Talk about, being transformed by the renewing of our mind, right? We talk about loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, spirit, right? You got to understand the psychology of a person to understand that, right? When we have things that are not necessarily a quote unquote scripture, but I believe these things to be true, like soul ties, right? The Bible doesn't use that term, but the Bible does speak about how you could be connected closely, right? And it's not even always about being opposite gender. You could be the same gender. Talk about how David and Jonathan had a connection, right? It wasn't about anything of alternative lifestyle. Their love for one another was that of like blood brothers, but they weren't, right? My thing is this: Jesus came to save our soul. But the problem with us embracing that is that we do not understand it because we're looking at soul as a tangible thing, like my physical heart in my chest. And it's not, right? Soul in the Greek is psyche, right? Psyche deal with your mind, right? So your soul is your mind, your will, your emotions. That's your soul. Now think about it in relationship to it saying he came to save your soul. Hmm. If my soul is mind, will, and emotions, oh, so he came to impact my will, which impacts my emotions, right? So it's like it makes sense now. Oh, that's why I need to let this mind be in me that's also in Christ. Because if my mind is right, my will be right. Now my actions will be right. How I treat folk will be right. So it's like we don't realize, in summary, Christ came to help you be a better person. That's what it boils down to. He came to save you from yourself. That's what he came to save you from. It's yourself, right? But we never ever break these things down to understand again how this stuff helps us in every arena of life. If we're talking about again psychological, dealing with one's personality, dealing with even with how um, one's emotional needs, psychologically, how did I come into your life? You might not know that. You might not know that I came into your life broken. So now, in dealing with me, I have an attraction for you, maybe because you're the only one I've ever met who did not make fun of me for being broken. Even if you don't call it brokenness, you did not make fun of me for loving you so quickly. You did not take advantage of the fact that you knew I'm catching feelings for you quickly because I'm broken. Now, you as the one that has the attraction don't realize that this might actually be toxic. You being the one to have an attraction for might not see it either. Because the truth of the matter is, your helping them could be a hindrance to them, depending upon who you are and what you are, right? There are times like, okay, AB and what you do. The average person cannot do what you do not having that training, right? You are a therapist. You cannot just you cannot be therapeutic to someone in certain areas without having your kind of training. You've gone through the steps. You've gone to school, right? You understand that there's an accountability with this thing where I have to be serious about what I say, when I say it, how I say it to this person. Because if this person happens to be, let's just say, suicidal, well, now what I say to this person really, really matters. And there are times where people can have great intentions, right? Or great meaning, but a bad method. Because you're taking on things that you're not qualified or capable of handling. Even inside of a relationship, we can sometimes enter a relationship and the attraction was psychological. You might be a person, if you are a man and you see a damsel in distress, right? You may have an attraction to saving individuals, which will now give that person a hero complex because their attraction to you now will be because you saved them, so they think. So it's psychological now on both ends. If I have an attraction for saving people or helping people, and now I confuse an assignment with a relationship, that person now is drawn to me because their attraction to me is because I have made them feel better about who they are. Well, I know that this is a sensitive subject. Within reason, have you ever seen that, AB?
I see it very often. I see it all the time because when you hit the nail right on the head when you say it's psychological. Because really, a lot of the times, at least for the people that I see, it is psychological. They might, I say psychological because usually they get into relationships trying to fill a void.
Yeah.
They're trying to fill a certain void in their life, whether it's being rejected, feeling abandoned, the depression, or dealing with from an anxiety. A lot of people think that finding the right person to help them with their issues is the answer, and instead of getting to the root of the problem. So they will get dependent on someone that fills that void psychologically. If my father wasn't in my life or my mom wasn't in my life, and they'll find someone to fit that role, to give them the love and the acceptance that they didn't get from their parent. It's all it's psychological, but what we often do, like I said, we don't deal with the issue, or we don't seek God to fill those voids. We try to fill those voids with a mate, with a woman, with a man, and God is the only one that can truly fill those voids for us. He's the unlimited source of love and acceptance and kindness and all those things that we look for in people, and especially if we've dealt with some type of trauma, or something from our past. So we get into these relationships trying to fill these holes, these voids, this emptiness in our lives, and it all starts in the mind. It all starts with them in the mind. It all starts in our psychology, um, and yeah, and 9 times out of 10, those relationships don't work. They won't last because you come to the realization that this person cannot fill a void that's in my life because it's a deeper root to it.
So codependency is a thing that is probably, in my opinion, an overused word only because when it's used, people don't realize exactly what that really is, right? And how dangerous that can be to have a codependent relationship to where you feel like my attraction to this person is so at a point where I feel like I cannot survive. I cannot function without this person. Because as we all know, that's psychology and attractions that are birthed out of a psychological nature are serious because it does become an addiction for some people, right? Because who they are and how they feel has now been dependent upon an outside source, an outside person. And when you begin to look outside yourself for self validation, this is how people become psychotic because they have lost all sense of self-worth. They don't see themselves as valuable. So now I've had to attach myself to you because I see value in you. So now I borrow from that to make me feel better. So now the threat of you not being in my life will cause some to do things and break the law. You know what I'm saying? Right? It can become that deep and that heavy that, you know what, man, if I can't have you, nobody else can. Because in their head, it's like, I can't take for you to make somebody else feel how you make me feel. And it's almost like to not have you is the equivalent to them almost dying because they don't see the virtue and the value in themselves. They borrow from you. So the threat of you not being in their life is really a problem for them to the point where it just cannot happen. I don't think that we ever are taught to realize that if you're not careful, the distraction that comes from attraction can be just that. And you can find yourself in not just a compromising position, but a detrimental position. Because now you're in a relationship with somebody that is not just unstable, but they're psychotic, and you and them are in danger. And again, if you don't have certain knowledge of certain things, you can realize now why the Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing. So get wisdom, but in all you're getting, get understanding. Right? I think before we make any decision, romantically or not, you better consider what the other side of that looks like. Before I decide to let you into my life, what does this look like on the other side of this decision? And we never consider that because our decisions are so shallow sometimes that we don't realize how high the potential is for this to be so detrimental, right? Because we only view attraction in terms of what a person looks like, how a person makes us feel. And then we argue the point that physical attraction is a must. When I argue this point, an unattractive person can become very attractive to you over time when other areas of attraction are really high. When you are very, very intellectually stimulated by this person. When the spiritual connection is there, you pray for one another. You realize as a friend, this person anticipates needs that you never shared, to the point where you realize that's divine. Because for you to be able to communicate that you know I have a certain need I never shared, or for you to anticipate that need, right, and just do it because it needed to be done. When a person just fits into your life without you having to make concessions, that will make you value that person unintentionally. They fit in your life. They bring value to your life without you having to give much instruction. And I think when a person is really meant for you and their purpose tends to be compatible with yours, they will fit without you having to do a whole lot of moving things around, right? And my thing is, the more you find that person attractive, the greater you would desire to free your time to see them, because you want to become more available to them, right? If I say this, from my perspective, emotional attraction, I won't say it's the same thing as psychological attraction, but they're very much related. Talk to me for a second, AB, about empathy one, and understanding, right? Talk to me about being drawn to somebody who understands and supports you emotionally and how powerful that can be.
Empathy is so important, especially when it comes to relationships and come to attraction. Um, I actually was just working with a couple just a few days ago, and the guy was telling me about something that happened in their past that
Mhm.
hurt him deeply. Um, and his wife at the time, she seemed to be more focused on defending her position and trying to
Yeah.
explain that her actions was not intentionally to hurt him, opposed to just trying to understand that the man was hurt. So
Mhm.
what that did is just caused his emotions to go up. It caused her to try to defend herself even more, and it just became a cycle of going back and forth until I had to stop and ask her, "What do you think he needs in this moment?" We understand that at the time what your intentions were, but he's explaining to you how it made him feel right now. So,
Mhm.
what do you think he needs in this moment from you? And it was a challenge to get her to empathize the hurt that he
Mhm.
was. She was like, I apologize. I said I'm sorry, but that's he didn't want an apology. He wanted understanding. He wants you to understand his position, um, and why that would hurt him. So if we're in a relationship or if we're married, whatever it might be, and the person doesn't have that empathetic heart where they can put themselves in your shoes to see things from your perspective, there's always going to be a clash. There's always going to be a clash. There's always going to be some conflict. And to be honest, just to be transparent, I
Yeah.
wasn't always good with that. I wasn't
Mhm.
always, especially when I felt that a person's, I guess, they're hurt. If I did something that hurt them, but it wasn't my intentions, I would do the same thing. I would get focused on defending and explaining my position and explaining my actions, opposed to just being empathetic to what they were going through. And that caused a lot of issues. It caused a lot of issues. So empathy is not an easy thing to develop, but I think once a person can develop how to be empathetic to their spouse, empathetic to anyone, they grow as an individual and the relationship grows as well.
I agree. I'm coming to you, JB, because I know I feel it in the spirit that you want to touch more on how men, a lot of men, feel that their wife or their girlfriend or woman is not empathetic to them and how they have an expectation as a man to give what they never get. Talk to me.
You know what? Here's the thing, man. What I learned a long time ago: a man doesn't marry a woman because of how she looks. It's how he feels in her presence. And let me explain to you a little bit about what that means. You can look as good as you want to be, but if he's not safe in your presence, he's not going to open up to you. He's not going to share, and he's not even going to reciprocate because he's going to already feel like you don't know how to handle him emotionally. We like to talk about emotional intelligence, but my thing is this: if you're not looking to reciprocate or understand someone else's emotions, then are we really emotionally intelligent? A lot of
Mhm.
times people like to speak to emotional intelligence through the lens of them receiving the understanding
Right.
versus giving understanding to someone else. You can't tell somebody else how they feel, you know what I mean, or how they should
Right.
feel once you've wronged them. The best that you can do is say, hey, look, I apologize. You know, how can I make it up for you? Those are the things that we have to seek accountability in relationships. But sadly, and all too often, we don't normally require women to apologize to men. It's as if they get a pass when it comes to dealing with men emotionally. You know what I mean? Men are required to always put that cape on, to go in and fix things from time to time. You know what I mean? And that is the piece that we learn accountability from. It's even in sports and our job and anything else that we do. We already know that there's an accountability component when it comes to being a man. But sadly, and all too often, the accountability part on the woman is never really stressed from other women to say, hey, look, it's important for your man's heart to be safe. Even in Proverbs 31, it talks about the Proverbs 31 husband about his wife. In his heart, he does safely trust. How many men would be honest enough if you got them all by themselves, nobody else around, just them and God, and they can honestly say that my heart is safe with my wife? I don't know what that number would be, but I assure you, some of you would be shocked because we're out of practice. You know, I see a lot of things, man, from time to time, but when I hear it, I don't see it. It's one of those small things that you have to be trained to listen to. Sometimes it's the lack of honor that I don't hear from women to men. It's as if you should automatically do it because you're the man. You're the protector. You're the provider. You know what I mean? But nobody speaks to the role of what the woman should be. You know, she should be his refuge. She should be his safe place. She should be his understanding. We never ever answer that end of the equation. All we do is focus on the man portion. And I will tell you this, ladies, if all we do is focus on what the man should do and how he should feel instead of asking him, that is how we break men. That is how men are broken over time, because there's no release. You know, in manhood, they have this thing that says, bend but don't break. But I'll assure you, men break. They do. Yeah. They break from time to time. And the sad part about it is the break happens and nobody ever notices it. You know, it's sometimes the break happens where he takes the long way home from work because he doesn't feel safe coming home. Sometimes the break happens when the woman at work whispers something that she probably shouldn't in his ear at work, or brings him a plate of food when she notices that he hasn't been eating lately. You know, I tell people all the time, some of you relationships are so flimsy, it can be defeated with a piece of styrofoam plate and some aluminum foil. You know what I'm saying? All it takes is a little bit of affection and some food and some gratitude from some other woman to ruin your relationship because you haven't taken the time out to understand your man and to be emotionally intelligent to someone other than yourself. So that's the main reason why I say we're out of practice when it comes to loving each other. And I think we need to get back to the master and ask him, hey, how should I love the person that I'm with? You know what I mean? Clear out whatever it is in me that's stopping me from seeing what they need. And sometimes if we do that, we'll be able to have a better relationship with God, a better relationship with our spouses, and a better relationship with our communities. But it starts with being aware of how we treat other people.
Wow. Good God Almighty. Sir, both of y'all hit with the back-to-back one hit a quitter. But if that won't show enough the truth by both of y'all, you know, AB started the sermon, JB closed it out. You know, but I could tell as as AB was speaking, I could see that on your mind that you wanted to say something of that nature, and I could not co-sign both of those statements enough. And I just believe that is what drives us as men crazy and insane sometimes, is to be expected to give of ourselves so much to the point that nobody notices that we're walking around sometime like a wounded healer. You know what I'm saying? We, and this is not to negate that a woman has a heavy responsibility as well. We get that. But we are men today talking. And I think that as men, we're not given the avenues enough to feel comfortable to state certain things like this, even sometimes to our woman, because we, society thinks that as men, we just don't want to talk. We don't want to be vulnerable. No, we don't feel safe being vulnerable. And as we all know, if you break a man in a vulnerable place, it takes a lot for that man to get to that place. So if he's let these walls down and allowed you in, and then we disrespect that place, he might not ever show back up in that place with you or with anybody ever again, because that becomes the place of psychological damage to where you broke him and made him feel like, as a man, you don't even have the right to have feelings or emotions. And then we demonize the man for moving forward like that, but we don't realize, okay, but where were his emotions crucified at? Nobody comes into this world stonewall. None of us. There are things that happened along the way that I won't say made us this way, but they influence the behavior. And sometimes because we don't want to examine that or give anybody the opportunity to even talk about it, then we will never really understand as men and women how to function together and move forward. Right? Like we've talked about a whole lot of different kinds of attraction and how these things um, work together and how these things can serve as distractions. So I want to shift for a second. How can physical attraction benefit a relationship? AB.
With physical attraction, it brings on all those other things that you was talking about before. It increases the dopamine and oxytocin and all those things. Like the physical attraction, I think that's the bare animalistic part of us as human beings. And though it is animalistic, that doesn't mean it's not needed. Because to be honest, with our physical attraction, the likelihood that a man and a woman will get together, it drops dramatically if there's no
Mhm.
physical attraction. The likelihood that they will get together to reproduce and drops dramatically. So it's very important. But like I said before, it's not something that we shouldn't stop there. We need to examine the other parts of a person. But I'll
Mhm.
be lying to say that, especially as men, being visual creatures, that physical attraction is not important to us. We want our woman to look nice, to carry herself and present herself well. Keep herself together. Because not only for the physical part, but it's also a sign of respect to herself.
Mhm.
So does she has self respect the way she carries herself? So yeah, I would never say that the physical attraction doesn't have any benefits. Because I think without the physical attraction, people probably will not even get together.
Mhm.
To mate. So yeah, it's very important.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have another wonderful guest who have just joined the show, the one and only Coach Bryan. Brother, what's
What up?
happening, man?
What up, man?
Listen, I know you just came on, but I'm about to hit you with a heavy one.
Go ahead.
So we've been talking about how attraction of any kind can be a distraction, right? We
Right.
talked about emotional attraction. We talked about intellectual attraction. We talked about physical attraction. We talked about social, cultural attraction. We talked about biological attraction, right? I want to come here with you for a second because you are one that I know likes to challenge women in a healthy way to think outside the box. Because I find a lot of those questions very amusing when I know why you ask certain questions and it gets them riled up. So let me ask you this,
Okay.
Bryan. Considering physical attraction, my question to you would be this. For you, when does or how can physical attraction become toxic?
Well, to answer your question, physical attraction can become toxic when it becomes the central focus of why you're choosing that person. I think a lot of times with attraction, and I was thinking about this thought earlier. I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and the thought process was that when it comes to physical attraction, when we are physically attracted to someone, in our mind, we believe that we should be rewarded for that physical attraction. We believe that we should be rewarded because we have that attraction. We believe that we deserve that. Majority of the people that physically look at what they believe that they want attraction-wise in a relationship, if you look at where they'll be 5 years from that time frame, that physical aspect is going to change, because as you mature, you then begin to realize that the physical part that had you ever so attracted very well could lead you down a road where you are deceived to believe that that was actually good. Basically, the Bible talks about faith.
Come on now.
Faith is not something that you see
Yes,
until you hear it, and until you become knowledgeable about what it is that you are experiencing. So many a times people say seeing is believing.
All right.
Sometimes seeing is deceptive, because seeing is related to what you have already acknowledged as the strongest point in your life. And so a lot of times the physical attraction becomes toxic because it associates with what we believe is most comfortable and with what we don't want to investigate. Most of the times our eyes will not investigate what we will hear, but what we hear, our eyes will investigate. And so what you have to end up doing is that when you're looking at the physical aspect, you have to look and say, okay, beyond the physical, how is this going to add to my life? And if it only adds to your life because it is a physical expression of something that you don't have to go work for, I think you need to think about that. I think you need to think about that. And I think one of the issues that I see with a lot of the ladies and a lot of the things that I challenge them on is a lot of y'all eyes. I'm about to say something that's going to really, really make some of these ladies think. A lot of the things that y'all see with y'all eyes is behind it is a price that many of you are not willing to pay with your. A lot of it is a price that you're not willing to pay with your understanding. The Bible says in all thy getting, get understanding.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of these ladies out here that are saying they want these different. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example for the brothers that are short, that are 5'6" and below. But there's a lot of women that on my timeline, they say, I want a man that's over a certain height. I want a man that's over a certain height, right?
Yes, sir.
But my issue with what you're asking for is this. When you're asking for that man of a certain height, are you also asking for the same character that matches up to what it is that you're asking for? Because here's the thing. There are men out here who may not necessarily have the height, but the character stands tall enough to hold you over for a lifetime.
All right.
So that physical attraction aspect, it becomes toxic when it becomes the central point of the reason why you are choosing that individual. Now, I'm not saying that you can't physically be attracted to that person, because I do believe physical attraction is something that draws you in.
Yeah.
But when it becomes the full focus and the vocal point of why you are choosing someone, it becomes toxic, because the moment that you don't see what you think you should see from that person, you will try to go substitute it someplace else that may even be more toxic than the first one you were going for.
Lord help. Mercy. Mercy. Sir. Matter of fact, if you want to send your love offering to Coach Bryan, I love it, sir. I love it.
It's something that as you become more mature,
come on,
you understand that yes, seeing is believing, but what you see determines what you believe. And a lot of times people, they go into the physical aspect hoping that the physical aspect will take away the responsibility of learning the other things that make what you see actually stand. If what is behind what you see is not sustainable, then what you see is going to be temporary.
Sir, since you are in the vein, right? I'm going to stay with you for a minute and come at you with this one. With physical attraction, have you ever seen where a person that is used to individuals being highly attracted to them, using their good looks as an excuse for bad behavior?
Oh, I've seen it. You see it all the time. You see it all the time in the culture. You see it all the time in the culture. I'm gonna give you an example of
Break
something, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but I don't care. We're gonna go back to a evangelist, Keke Palmer.
All right.
Keke Palmer went to a Usher concert, got a groove on, and everybody jumped down her significant other's throat saying that he's jealous, he's this, he's that, right? Had the whole little war, right? So everybody is telling her, you need to move on from, you need to move on. Now, if she was not so much of an attractive woman, we wouldn't probably care. They probably wouldn't have cared about it. But because she is a beautiful woman aesthetically, we thought it was our responsibility, the culture, it was our responsibility to tell this pretty woman that she needs to be with some man that ain't broke, that ain't doing this, that ain't doing that. We told her that. But this very same woman that we almost a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, were saying she need to leave him alone, is pregnant by the same man that y'all told her to get rid of. But because of her beauty, we're not holding her accountable.
Yeah.
We're not holding her accountable because we believe that if you're beautiful, eventually good things will happen to you and that you won't be held accountable for the lack of integrity or the lack of decisions that you need to make that are best suited for your life. See, the Bible even says beauty is vain. So the moment that beauty becomes the vocal point of why you're choosing, everything else is canceled out. Everything else is canceled out. Because if a person is so beautiful that you can't see them for who they really are, you will be easily deceived. Case in point, Eve. What did the Bible say? She saw that it was good for food. She saw that it was good for food. The beauty of what was on that tree caused her to forget the instruction that her husband, Adam, had told her to pay attention to.
Sir.
The beauty of a thing, needs to be in the full investigation of why it is beautiful. There needs to be not, it is beautiful just because I think, but it is beautiful because of what it adds.
Yeah.
Beauty is an accessory of great character, and beauty is an accessory of a person that actually adds to your life. It's an added bonus. I've seen on my timeline many beautiful women, but I wouldn't trust them with my vulnerability. I wouldn't trust them with my humanity. One of the things that we don't take into account is that when it comes to beauty, for some reason, when beauty is involved, all of a sudden every man got to be Superman. But if you take that cape off, that beauty doesn't matter. It matters is, can I be human with the beauty that you're giving to me based off of how you live your life?
All right, sir. I mean, you talking good. I'll allow you to stir the gumbo as long as you wanted to, because you was cooking good, baby. You was cooking good. And I cannot agree more. But I want to be fair to the ladies. Now, we do have our moments.
Oh, yes.
Where and I'm going to go the other way. As men, we can be caught up in what she looked like, right? But there's sometimes where a woman can be so caught up in what we can provide that we get away with certain things. And if we know that she has become dependent on us in certain ways, then sometimes we will take advantage of that attraction, because we know that she's caught up in, I provide this kind of a lifestyle. And yes, she might find me attractive physically as well. But for a woman, that's usually not it by itself. It's something else too. And if we know that I provide X, Y, and Z, sometimes we utilize that to sometimes have outside relationships, sometimes to speak to her in a manner that's not respectful, right? Because it got to be fair on both ends. I think that as men, I have even seen where, like, all of us have friends, that we know that may not necessarily speak to their woman correct consistently. But if we're not careful, we will say, well, because that's not our situation, I won't say anything. Well, I want to advise talking to her. But what about checking your man, your dude in private, your friend in private? What about saying, dude, that's I realize that that's you and her doing your thing, but it seems like you kind of are taking advantage of a good thing here. Now, to some, they may say, never get involved. But if we friends, I'm going to say something. Because if we friends, I ought to be able to check you, and vice versa when we're wrong. How you guys feel about that? Anybody?
I mean, yeah, definitely, man. We definitely have to hold each other accountable when we see our friends or anyone treating someone less than favorable. You know, when I come in contact with anything like that, or if I see that, I always have to ask my friend, brother, but whoever he is, like, the way that you're talking to this woman, the way you're interacting with her, are you getting the results that you want from the relationship? You can't, if you're constantly screaming or yelling or raising your voice, however you're talking to her, because she's not fulfilling something in your life, or she's not meeting your expectations. Chances are she's not meeting those expectations because of the way you're treating her, the way you're speaking to her. So you're not getting the results you want, and the method that you're continually using, you keeping you in the cycle where you feel like you have to raise your voice or be aggressive or intimidating in order to try to get what you want. But at the end of the day, you're still not getting what you want. So you have to learn how to communicate with her in a respectful way. You have to learn how to empathize with her. You have to learn how to see things from her perspective in order to get the results that you want. If you want her to meet certain expectations or do certain things for you in a certain way, like they always say, you get more bees with honey. And so that's something that we also have to learn as men. As times, we attack a lot of things in the world, a lot of things in our lives with aggression, with force. That's how we're taught. That's how we're taught to be men, to be stoic, to be aggressive, to be strong. But when it comes to your relationship and when it comes to your lady, you can't approach her in the same way. You can't approach her with the same force because they're different from us. They're different from us. And if you do, don't be surprised if she bites back. And then you'll end up in a relationship where there's there's a bunch of conflict and turmoil going on.
Sometimes as men, we have to learn how to apologize too, man. You know what I mean? I put it to you like this. You can't always bribe your woman with food. You know what I'm saying? She'll be up there mad, be like, what you want to eat? That's your way of apologizing. You need to work on that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not really acknowledging or holding yourself accountability for how she feels. Just like we talked about earlier about women need to be held accountable for how they treat their man. I think it's even more important for the man to hold himself accountable, and also those around him to hold him accountable for his actions as well too, because A, you're the leader, so you're supposed to lead by example. You know what I mean? And B, there's a higher burden of protection that is governed to you. So you should use that accordingly. You know what I mean? Use your position in a way that would be pleasing to God. If he stepped down out of eternity and was standing behind you, would you still talk to your woman the same way? You talk to when you do think he was standing there watching.
Wow. Wow. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. But gentlemen, we are hitting that hour that I want to allow everybody a closing statement. I'm gonna start with AB. I'm gonna go to Bryan, come to you, JB, and then I'll close it out. Go ahead, AB.
I think my running theme for the night was just to check and ask what else. What else comes with it? Because as men, as guys, the physical attraction is definitely going to grab our attention. The physical attraction is what's going to spark it, is what's going to get us started. But after the physical attraction, we cannot dwell in that space. We got to start searching and examining for what else a person brings, what else they possess. Now, I want to see, where are you mentally? Where are you with all your wounds and your pains and your traumas? Not to say that you should be fully healed, but are you working towards healing? What's the personality type, and do our personalities actually match? How do you communicate? How do you resolve conflict? How do you get when
I think you might have froze, AB.
Yeah, he froze up.
I'm gonna come to you. You back, AB?
Yeah.
I think you froze, brother.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was just saying we have to look deeper. We have to look deeper. If we want to, I guess, it makes me think of the story in the Bible when Jesus met up with the fishermen, and it was like, hey, we can't catch nothing. We can't find nothing right here. And Jesus said, well, go deeper and cast your nets. And when they went deeper, that's when they got their blessing. That's when they had a real catch. And I think as men, we have to do that as well. We have to look deeper than just the surface. A pretty face or a nice body. We gotta look deeper than what they're wearing or how how they carry, how they wear their hair, whatever it might be. All that surface stuff that we get distracted by, we have to learn how to get deeper if we really want to, get a quality woman.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Love you, brothers. Well, I'm about to hop off right now. It's always a pleasure to be with y'all.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you, bro.
AB. Always.
What you got, Coach B?
My final thoughts is, in the world we live in, we have to take inventory of what we're desiring in a relationship. Is it applicable for the life that God has for us? A lot of times we go into these relationships with all of these different preferences, but we need to discover what our needs are, and we need to discover which person has the capacity to be able to give us what we need consistently. Preferences change because they change when you mature, but the needs that you have, sometimes God allows those to linger so that you can properly choose the person that has the ability to give you what you need. And also keep in mind that every season of your life, you need to be learning something about who you are, so that when you come across the person that you are going to eventually end up choosing, you don't have just your name to give them. You have information that you can accurately give them. And then from there, they'll be able to make a decision of whether they want to participate. I think a lot of times people work on themselves to get a person that they're not qualified for. You only qualify for the individuals that you're willing to give the information that you are willing to share with them without worrying about if they're going to choose you or not. You have to get to the places, we have to get to the places where the person that we choose, we've got to be okay that if it's just a seasonal thing, we learn something. I think a lot of times we get territorial over people that we haven't fully investigated if they have the capacity or the bandwidth to be with us as we grow. Because as you grow, you have a curriculum that you need to present to the person who potentially might want to be a part of that journey.
Mm-hmm. I love it, sir. What you got, JB?
The thing that I would stress more in my final word is to make sure that you become the person that you would want to enjoy being around. You want to make sure you're the person who always has something kind to say. You want to be the person who's always thoughtful. You want to be the kind of person who's always looking out for the best interests of other people. And then after that, you'll become familiar with how that feels. So when it does come time for you to select someone, you'll know exactly what the qualifications are. It'll be the same way if you got hired for a job or you're hiring for a job. Well, it's kind of hard to hire for somebody for the position if you've never done the position yourself. So that's the main reason why I say make sure that when you're looking for someone to be your spouse, just make sure that you're in practice as well, doing those things that you would yourself enjoy. The Bible says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I still think that's great advice today. But if I had to leave you with one thing to keep you going, it would be this. If you want anything bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time and your peace and your sleep for it, and if all that you dream and scheme is about it and life seems useless and worthless without it, and if you go out and sweat for it, fret for it, plan for it, lose all your terror of the opposition for it, and if you simply go after the thing that you want with all of your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope, and confidence, and stern pertinacity, If neither cold, poverty, famish, or gall, sickness, or pain, a body and brain can keep you away from the thing that you want. If dogged and grim you besiege and beset it, and with the help of Almighty God, you'll get it. Greg, I want to thank you for allowing me to come onto the Sanctuary podcast. As always, brother, it is a pleasure being with you and the rest of the fellas, man. We should do this more often. Thank you so much for allowing me the time to share a little bit of what I've learned along the way, and also to learn a little bit from you guys as well, too, as we try to make sure that we're better each and every day. Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Man, thank you for your perspective. And thank you, Bryan, as well, because you came in cooking, brother. You came in with the file 450. I have, and on a personal note, I've enjoyed all of our times of fellowship and getting to know one another. I have learned in the last um, 5 years that you never know where you will meet and find friendship, whether it be online, whether it be wherever. And I have greatly appreciated all of you for your friendship and for your perspective and for your walk as men. And I mean that really from the heart. And I want to say this in regard to closing out. Um, I think as men and women, we have to not be afraid to challenge societal norms. We have to not be afraid to do introspection to figure out what in our life is working and what is not working. We have to always be mature enough to realize that it might be you, it might be us who is the red flag. It's not always other people who are the red flag. I think it takes one to be in tune with who they are in God to know when God is revealing, and your discernment has to be about who you are. Because if discernment only works about other people, yours broke. Because discernment has to show you first. And sometimes it is us who have to realize that there are many things in life that we have to unlearn as we matriculate, as we get older. I think when it regards attraction, and as again talked about tonight, attraction being a distraction, we have to be mature enough as men and women of God to know that I've been approaching this thing incorrectly, but it's never too late for a reroute. It's never too late for us to get things right. And it's never too late for us to learn more than we knew yesterday. Like life is about learning, love is about learning. When we stop learning, we stop growing. And I think the more we can educate ourselves, especially as Black men, and have conversations where none of us are arguing or fighting for airtime. We wait our turn. We state our perspective. We appreciate the other person's perspective. We can applaud each other. We can learn from each other, right? And that is what living is about. It's about learning from the experience and the knowledge of other people as your perspective continues to be influenced by everyone. When we can learn to do that and to not be intimidated because someone might differ from us in terms of their opinion or perspective, but everything is not about right and wrong. Some things are about perspective, right? 6 looks like 9 depending upon where you're standing. It's about perspective. And when we can all learn to value and appreciate what each other has to say, we could all learn better, love better, live better, laugh more, and appreciate life. But again, I thank you guys for your time on the show today. I want to thank Envision Radio for the platform to be able to speak. And I pray that much prosperity enters all you guys' life as you have desires of your heart that are yet to be fulfilled. But I pray that God will grant you whatever your heart does desire very soon. To all my listeners on Envision Radio, always remember we air every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Envision Radio. You can hear us at envision-radio.com. We're always happy to get new listeners. And again, to my my faithful compadres who are on tonight. Thank you so much for your time, your perspective. And as always, I love you with the love of the Lord. Ah.